Okay, right, welcome back everybody. We'll get on with the second half of the morning session. Before we start, some update on Facebook news. As of about 5 minutes ago, we had 379 people reached through the Facebook Live post, which is great, 149 views, 10 likes, only 7 people shared it. Get sharing, people, there's free Wi-Fi. No excuses. I can't tell you the Twitter stats because we couldn't figure those out. There you go, 26 individual tweets and lots of retweets about the conference so far. So that's great, and carry on using social media to tell people what we're doing here. Right, what we're doing for the rest of the morning is carrying on our theme about progress and partnership. And the first 2 talks we're going to have are about what's happening in Wales, which is great. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Helen Wilkinson and Barnaby Letheren, who are going to do a joint presentation, and they work in knowledge and data management in Natural Resources Wales. So I'll hand over to Helen first.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everybody. Just before I actually dive into our presentation, I want to just take a moment just to say Croeso Cymru, welcome to Wales. It's the first time the MBN conference has been in Wales, and we're utterly delighted that it's here. So it's an opportunity for us to share more of the work that we carry out here in Wales. So just to give you a capture of a bit of a sense of place. Welcome to Wales. Here's some images of our special sites and our special species that we have the joy to visit, see and look after in Wales. Around a third of the land of Wales is designated, and about 70% of our seas are designated as well. So there's a really good, rich and diverse wildlife in Wales. Okay, we've also got 3 national parks and 76 national nature reserves. So just to give you a bit of a flavour and say this is where we are, a sense of place before we dive in. Okay, so our presentation is interesting. The 2 presentations earlier, both of them talked about a need to change, we need to do things differently. And our talk today is around 2 areas of new legislation in Wales which are to reflect that we need to do things differently and that have been adopted, and then what that means for biodiversity and biodiversity information specifically. As Jen mentioned, it's myself as double act, myself and Barnaby Letheren, who I'll hand over at the end of this part of the presentation. Okay, so first part of this new legislation, big change, was actually creating our organisation, Natural Resources Wales. I wouldn't normally put an introduction to who we are and what we do, but we're new, and this is a UK conference, so I gather some people don't know who we are and what we do. So we were established in 2013, it was Easter weekend 2013, and we brought together the functions of the Countryside Council for Wales, Forestry Commission Wales and the Environment Agency in Wales. We do have a purpose defined in this new legislation, and our purpose is for the sustainable management of natural resources and to apply the principles of sustainable management of natural resources in exercising our functions. Summed up nicely on our website as looking after our environment for people and nature. These are the sorts of activities that we carry out. They should be familiar. You've probably worked with our legacy organisations in the past anyway. I'm not going to go on talk about them too much because Barney will be covering those in his presentation as well. But that's sort of who we are and what we do. This was the first step prior to the legislation being enacted. Okay, so why? We talked about change, things weren't working well, and what do we want to change? So in May 2009, Welsh Government produced One Wales, One Planet. And this puts sustainable development at the heart of government. That was the aim, is for sustainability, to look at people, environment, economy all together, but to meet the needs of the current without compromising the needs of the present. But that's the first time, it's a world first, to put that into government, sustainability at the heart of government. It was about the same time we missed the Biodiversity 2010 target. So, okay, things aren't going as we might like to. What should we do differently? So 2 pieces of groundbreaking legislation were enacted. One is the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which is at the top there with this nice rainbow wheel of different goals. And then we have the Environment Act at the bottom there. So 2 groundbreaking pieces of legislation. The Wellbeing of Future Generation, focusing on sustainability. So what we do today does not compromise what the future generations will need. And then the Environment Act implements that sustainability, but specifically for natural resources. So it's natural resource management in the context of sustainability. It is bold, and it's viewed as bold, I guess. The UN Director of Sustainability has stated that what Wales is doing today, the world will be doing tomorrow. That's quite a statement, and I hope we deliver. But the point of the presentation today is to review how groundbreaking is that. Okay, so we have the Wellbeing of Future Generations. The main things to point out here are that there's a series of goals. This is what we're aiming to do for sustainability across the board. That's the rainbow wheel at the top there. The main thing that would be interesting here, those goals that we're trying to aim for in Wales, is a resilient Wales. And that focuses on biodiversity and ecosystem function. That's enshrined in the sustainability for Wales. Okay. Then, in terms of delivery, that will be delivered through new ways of working. It's not necessarily about process, it's really focusing on ways of working. So looking at long-term, so we're trying to make sure our actions today have a long-term view of impact and benefit. Looking at prevention, we don't want to create problems in the actions that we take now. Integration, so when we talk about resilience of ecosystems, it's in the context of a prosperous Wales, a healthier Wales. It's not in isolation. For sustainability to truly happen, it's got to be across all of those elements. Collaboration and involvement are key. The NBN, obviously, that's all about collaboration and involvement. It's a key part of the new legislation. It's enshrined in that legislation. There is a process. We're looking at, there's an assessment of wellbeing that happens at a local level with what are called public services boards. It's not all public bodies. It is 44 public bodies, it turns out, in Wales, but most of the public bodies in Wales work together locally to do an assessment of wellbeing and then produce some objectives and produce a plan to make changes within their locality. It's all at a local level, at local authority level mostly. And as I mentioned before, there's another piece of legislation, the Environment Act. This gives a sustainability focus for the environment sector. So it's a responsibility on all public bodies to maintain and enhance biodiversity across all of their functions, strengthening the NERC Act in a Welsh context. We will also be producing a new species list, a priority species list for Wales as a part of enabling that, the enactment of the Environment Act, again with a Welsh focus. Sustainability and sustainable management of our natural resources. Again, with principles, not just process, it's ways of working, partnership, collaboration. You can see those words there. The ones that are probably key are, we're looking at it being evidence-based. Very important for this audience here. It will be evidence-based. It's about collaboration and engagement. It's about resilient ecosystems. And two other things that may be of interest as well. Scale is important. We want the information at the right level of scale to answer the questions that we need to answer and take the actions we need to take. And similarly, we're looking for multiple benefits. The process here is probably a little bit more of interest to this audience. So the process starts with a report on the state of our natural resources. So we've looked at natural resources in the broadest sense, so it's air quality, water quality, etc., as well as biodiversity. The key thing for this report is the first time we've reported on resilience of ecosystems in Wales. So if you're interested in ecosystem resilience, take a look at that report. It's the first time we've reported on ecosystem resilience. In terms of the cycle, once that state is known, Welsh Government prepare a natural resources policy which defines the key aims of policy for Wales in terms of sustainable management of natural resources. The key thing from the natural resources policy is that we're looking at nature-based solutions. So everything is looking for nature-based solutions in our ways of working. Locally, we'll prepare area statements. We don't know what these are yet, so it's a question mark there. We're working on these at the moment. It's consultation. Area statements is about ways of working. What evidence do we need to provide in a different way which allows big change at a local level with our local communities? This is consultative, it's engaging, and it's across all of our stakeholders. Okay. So, is it a bold step or not? Is it revolution? Is it evolution? In terms of the ways of working, we work collaboratively, we use an evidence base, and we think about scale. So I'd like to reflect on what we've achieved so far. Okay, we have a really good foundation already. The NBN has been supported since the early beginnings in 1994. We've got the Atlas, local environmental record centres, unique in Wales in having full coverage. We've supported the national schemes and societies, always worked in collaboration. That logo has moved. It was over our logo earlier, so apologies for that. This isn't an NRW view, this is purely about collaboration and partnership. It really is core and at the heart of the new legislation. Similar to the Scottish Biodiversity Information Facility, we've had a similar network here in Wales as well. So in terms of our contribution, I'm just recognising that NRW, in true partnership, we would be playing our part as well. Our policy is open by default. We release all of our records, apart from sensitive ones, openly within the system. We collect records. We have 1.4 million records on the NBN Gateway, and those are also available through the local environmental record centres. They're also available through GBIF. Coming to the focus of the conference, data, what's it good for? From the information on the Atlas, and also on the GBIF, I was using our Gateway report there at the closure, so on the Atlas as well. So looking at use, we do get information on use, and here we can see that there's a lot of downloads. The information is reused. Similarly, we get citations from the information on GBIF, so the information data, what's it good for, it is reused. And we also publish other non-biodiversity data sets through the Welsh Government's portal, so if you're interested in our other evidence base, please drop on to that site as well. We've got 130 entries on there. Just to give a few examples of data, what's it good for? We've worked in partnership with the Botanical Society for Britain and Ireland to help to complete the round of county rare plant registers. This is a world first, full coverage in Wales. Really good evidence base. So in terms of evidence base, it's quite key. It's informing our review of the guidelines for designating sites, which is really, really useful. So it's a vital evidence base. In terms of the principles, it's place-based at the appropriate scale, it's collaborative, and it's evidence-based. So that's one good example, data, what's it good for. Here's another example of data and what's it good for. And in terms of ways of working, again, meets a lot of those ways of working. The hydropower guidance, bringing Natural Resources Wales together, we were able to review our hydropower guidance in the context of nature conservation. Welsh ravines are internationally important for oceanic bryophytes. We used the evidence base that was available to us to look at a targeted approach. And the result of that is that now that developers, before they decide on a scheme, they know where to go to of significant sites. So essentially, all of our designated sites, if there was a development proposed for a designated site, they would only be able to extract a small amount of water. It's unlikely to be proposed, but off sites, it's much easier for a developer to utilise those sites. So most of the schemes are now looking off of our designated sites. Okay. In terms of story so far, we have the wellbeing plans at a local level are produced. We've got the wellbeing assessments. NRW has some wellbeing goals, which you can see there about championing the Welsh environment and ensuring land and water Wales is managed sustainable and in an integrated way. We have our State of Natural Resources report, the first report on resilience, and we have the Natural Resources Policy Statement with nature-based solutions. I'll now hand over to Barnaby Letheren, who's going to give a whistle-stop tour through some data management. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that was a very, very quick overview of where we are and how we've got there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the sort of the future view. So the title is How Does, Will, Should Data Support the Sustainable Management of Natural Resources? I've put will and should in there just to highlight that this is a developing approach and it's not all set in stone yet. The question, I think, is fundamental because, as Helen said, the fact that our work, all of our work, has to be evidence-led is enshrined in the legislation. This led us to the creation of our data and information vision, which you can see on the screen. NRW will be a truly evidence-based organisation with our evidence underpinned by good data and information. Staff and stakeholders confidently and effectively use our data and information to sustainably manage the natural resources of Wales. Very high-toned and accurate and corporate, but this is the one we generally use. Any decision taken in the absence of good data is basically just a guess. So first of all, what do we really need data about? Helen's introduced you briefly to the concept of the area statements. This is a really critical piece of work that's going on at the moment. The Environment Act says that these area statements must include information about the natural resources in the defined areas, the benefits they provide, the priorities, the risks and opportunities that need to be addressed to achieve the sustainable management of them. They will bring together data and information and ways of working with others to help us better understand the state and trend of natural resources. And if you're thinking that sounds like an awful lot, I'm inclined to agree with you. So this is a graphic that Helen used earlier. This was produced as part of a case study that was done in the Towie catchment near Swansea. It's designed to show all the different elements that are of interest to creating an area statement. So you can see here biodiversity well represented, of course important for this audience. I don't know if you can see the two dolphins in the bottom left-hand corner, but keep an eye on those because they're going to crop up again. Others are, let's see, recreation, industry, sustainable power generation, agriculture, forestry, marine and freshwater quality, urban green space, river flow and flooding, historic landscape, climate, carbon storage, fishing industries, habitat management. And this is just an illustrative list, of course. There are plenty of other things that we need to consider, like socio-economic impacts. So in other words, to take a holistic view of environmental management, which is what we're really trying to do, you need to know an awful lot of things about an awful lot of things. And if you're like me and you're a bit of a nerd, this starts to sound a bit like another question with the ultimate answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe and everything, which is lucky because we can answer that. My apologies if you're not familiar with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Oh, that was a lot to cover. Let's have a nice photo. I said I was a bit of an amateur photographer. This is a couple of Risso's dolphins that I photographed in Bull Bay on Anglesey a little while ago. So, everyone still with me? So that's a little bit about the data that we need. Now, what are we trying to do with it? Well, apart from writing area statements, this is, again, a graphic that Helen used that shows some of our key roles and responsibilities. We're an advisor, we're the principal advisor to the Welsh Government. We advise industry in the wider public and private sector. We're a regulator, marine, forest and waste industries. We designate SSIs, AOMBs, national parks. We respond to some 9,000 environmental incidents a year as a Category 1 responder. We're responsible for flood management. We respond to about 9,000 planning applications a year. Around 7% of the land area of Wales is under some form of direct NRW management. So we do an awful lot. We have a very wide remit, and as Helen said, it's enshrined in the legislation that our approach must be evidence-led and it must be collaborative. So we have data and information about an awful lot of different things, and we're trying to do an awful lot of different things with it. So how do we make sense of it? This is NRW's data and information lifecycle. I'm not going to go through it in detail because it's NRW specific, but basically the green boxes are data in, the blue boxes are elements of the lifecycle and management that it goes through, and the orange boxes are data out, obviously including to the NBN. The really different bit for us is this one. This is where we're integrating data. We're trying to bring data from a lot of different sources, internal and external together, integrate it, combine it, and use it in a way that makes sense and that can be applied to a holistic approach. So, as a very brief summary, we need data on lots and lots of different things, so we can do lots and lots of different things, and the way we're trying to do it is by integrating data together. So in summary, to come back to the dolphins again, we need a very wide evidence base. We're trying to do a lot of different things, and we need to underpin all of our actions with evidence. If you remember what I told you about this is 2 Risso's dolphins in a place called Bull Bay, just off Anglesey. That's not entirely helpful information. There's a limit to what we can do with that. This is what we really want. I don't know how well you can see that, but this is Darwin Core. It's a 6-figure grid reference. It's correctly formatted date. There is a verifier on the end there, and we've got a photograph. And I just wanted to leave you with a sort of a closing thought. Imagine what we, and I do mean we in the widest collaborative sense, imagine what we could do with 215 million records like this. Thank you all for listening.